All right, well, welcome everyone to Is There a Green Home on My Block? A review of a US-wide database. This course is approved for 1 hour continuing ed, namely we're getting more, this is a realtor session, so we've got, at least in the state of Michigan, a CE marketplace there, as well as AIALU, which may make it applicable to your state-based design or contractor license. Today, I will be your moderator. My name is Brett Little, and I'm the program manager here at the nonprofit, the GreenHome Institute. The lessons that we want to take away from this is that, there are green homes and energy efficient homes all over, and how we identify them and review them and value them and show them is very important. So that's what we're going to be covering at the starting point. And we're huge thanks to our top tier sponsor, Build Equinox, with the Serve 2 smart ventilation system. Unlike traditional ERVs or HRVs, it features many qualities of smarter balanced ventilation and feedback monitoring. With a standard ERV or HRV, you have a constant air flow rate with no relation to actual indoor air quality. When the home is occupied, the air quality is poor. The ERV just can't keep up, but when the occupants leave on vacation, the ERV keeps ventilating and wasting energy. Now, since the CERT actually monitors air quality, it vents only when is needed. Compared to an ERV, the CERT can ventilate up to 300 CFM, quickly purging pollutants from the home. When no ventilation is needed, the CERT can recirculate, unify the home, providing some additional heating, cooling, dehumidification in a very energy efficient manner. The CERT does this by monitoring both carbon dioxide, CO2, and volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and expels them when ventilation is necessary. And so the CERT can be set to your client's needs and wants, or to best standards and green building standards as far as what you want to see those ventilations at. And instead of an ERV exchange cord, the CERT uses a high efficiency heat pump to exchange energy between incoming supply and outgoing exhaust air. The CERT has an easy accessible panel, gets up to MERV 13 to make sure viral load transmission is reduced as well. The CERT is manufactured right in Urbana, Illinois. The entire facility is powered 100% by solar energy, and they partner fantastic with some of our other sponsors out there. The heat pump with the Rheem Prestige to boost its capacity, with our friends over at Mitsubishi to help distribute mini split air, and then also the folks over at Water Furnace, where they have the GeoBoost exchange. So check them out over at buildingequinox.com today. And then thanks to our second tier sponsor, Niagara, they've got one of the lowest flowing toilets on the planet, down to 0.8 gallons per flush for single flush on vacuum assisted, all the way down to 0.5 on the dual flush side for dual flush, 0.5, 0.9. And they've got all sorts of other products out there, shower heads, aerators through AM conservation to help reduce flow and save water and save money. So check it out over at niagaraconservation.com. All right, well, I am excited to hand it off to our speaker here, Meg Garabrant. She spent 11 years at a regional MLS and was a pioneer in the industry for adoption of the MLS greenfields and data auto population. She was a regular speaker at the industry event and helped create resources for the MLS industry about adopting green and data fields and the importance of the information as part of a real estate transaction process. At Earth Advantage, she heads up the Green Building Registry, or GBR, and is regularly engages in program administration to source green verification and power production data, building rating, certification, renewable energy data to include in the GBR. So Meg is going to be talking us through what this program is and how it can work and how it can help you out. So I'm excited to hand it off to you, Meg, and please do take it away.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Brett. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and share with you and the audience about the Green Building Registry. So what this is essentially, it's a single source of home performance data, really for the real estate marketplace and beyond. It is a product of Earth Advantage, which is a nonprofit located in Oregon. And they have, three main missions with our company, maintaining well above code building standards, providing this green home data to the real estate marketplace with GBR, and developing and providing training to key professionals. You know, this is in the built environment as well as the real estate marketplace as well. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about labeling home performance. You know, chances are you're very accustomed to seeing labels in other areas of your life, like the organic label, fuel economy, nutrition, the Rainforest Alliance, and the Energy Star label on many appliances that you may purchase today. But historically, it's been really tough to obtain this type of information on a home. So now we have the opportunity to deliver this data and information to the marketplace through the Green Building Registry. So why are we doing all of this? Generally, this information isn't making it into listings and therefore is not being considered as part of the real estate transaction process. This information may be, you know, the energy use of the home, these third-party building certifications, it has renewables on it, power production, solar panels. So this data isn't getting there. So we're trying to solve that problem. So each year, the National Association of Realtors publishes a couple of studies, and they actually just recently released a couple of weeks ago their annual Realtors and Sustainability Report for the residential marketplace. And these are always very interesting, and to see the trends year to year since they started this. You know, what is the perception of the real estate marketplace related to this information? And is it improving? Is it declining? And it really gives us a good gauge as to sort of where everyone's at in the real estate marketplace. So one of the things I want to point out on this first one is, you know, over 65% of agents and brokers feel that including and promoting energy efficient information in listings is very or somewhat valuable. Okay, so they understand this and they see value in doing so. However, and this is a consistent disconnect over the years and a gap that we're working to try and bridge through education and now promotion of the availability of this information. So a few staggering statistics, you know, 54% of agents don't know if their MLS has green data fields to support this information. So that's pretty consistent, so over half. 47% don't use the fields, the green fields that an MLS have. And only 13% promote green certifications on their listings in their MLS. So we certainly continue to have a big education opportunity here throughout the real estate marketplace. Another recent report that came out in March of this year is the NAR's Home Buyer and Seller Generational Trends Report. And this was, I thought, a really interesting slide that really has called out the environmentally friendly features that were considered very important to survey respondents. You know, what were those individual features and attributes that the buyers they considered very important? And you can see that on the green line, a third of all buyers felt that heating and cooling costs are very important as in consideration of when they're purchasing a home. You know, you can see there's lighting, windows, doors, and siding, efficient appliances, energy and conservation, and commuting costs were also factors in here. So what is the impact of this missing information? Well, at the time of sale, really thousands of dollars of value could be lost because the data, the trustworthy data, was not available for a listing agent to effectively price and market that home, the appraiser and valuation, and the lenders in considering maybe green mortgage products. So this data isn't even entering the marketplace to be considered at time of sale. So we're providing the insight into the true cost of ownership by helping to get this data out into the marketplace. And this really helps a buyer make a more informed purchase decision. And this is really important in today's marketplace, where I'm sure you've heard stories about, you know, multiple offers and people bidding well over listing price to try and get that home, and then paying out of pocket to bridge the appraisal gap. So having more of this information available helps a buyer make a more informed purchase decision, because I can only imagine what may happen down the road when they find their heating or cooling costs, you know, go through the roof at those respective seasons. So this has also prohibited buyers from utilizing green mortgage products, and generally and oftentimes those have more favorable terms to a buyer, and they may be able to buy more home with that energy information. So why GBR? So we've recognized that the home buyer needs trustworthy data at the time of purchase. It's also critical that this information is accurately and consistently displayed in real estate listings because it is necessary to value the green, renewable, and energy efficient assets of these homes. And where we're able to data auto-populate, so automatically feed this information into listings, it helps reduce liability concerns with agents. You know, as we mentioned earlier, there's still a significant opportunity for agent education. So the data that comes through GBR is sourced and originated directly from the programs itself. So that helps to reduce that liability. And by combining all of these various national and regional programs under one umbrella in GBR, we're really providing a single source solution of this information to the marketplace. Oops, sorry about that. So let's talk about GBR. Green Building Registry, we call it GBR. It has you know, the tons of acronyms in our world. But I do want to point out that if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, please go ahead and type those into the chat box, and we will address them as they come in. So GBR was originally built in 2017. It was actually built to support a regional energy labeling policy from the city of Portland, Oregon. Since then, we have grown to support a number of different state, municipal, and utility programs throughout the country in their data administration and helping to deliver that data into the real estate marketplace in those areas. We have also grown to be the leading provider of this data in the US through our additional data relationships we have formed with program partners. So as of, I think last week, we had over 1.75 million residential building certifications available in the Green Building Registry. We also have some solar PV data in some markets. We have the estimated energy costs on some homes, which I'll talk a little bit more about. We are in the process of developing out the database to accept multifamily properties, and we hope that to be available by the end of this month. And we also have a partnership with the Appraisal Institute to provide a pre-filled residential green and energy efficient addendum. So it's a great benefit to appraisers as well. So what does this data look like on the map? Is there a green home in my neighborhood? Well, chances are likely that yes, in most parts of the country, you very well could find a green home in your neighborhood. So this map is a few months old at this point, but I think it provides a good representation of the clusters of data that are available throughout the country. And for those that maybe feel that because they're not seeing this information in the marketplace, that these homes don't exist in their area, using our public-facing website to provide that visual is really powerful. So what do we have for data available through the Green Building Registry? We have a number of national partners, national data partners. We have the HERS index scores from ResNet. We have LEED for homes from the US Green Building Registry. We have the National Green Building Standard from the American National Standards Institute. We have another national data provider that will be coming on soon. So you can go to our website and sign up for our emails to be notified about press releases and announcements. And when we have a data connection with a local government or MLS municipality, we're also able to deliver Energy Star data in that market area, as well as the DOE's Zero Energy Ready homes. For our regional data partners, we have now two from Built Green. The Central Washington data has been in our system for a number of months, and we just recently brought on the Seattle market area, and that data will be available through the Green Building Registry soon. Earth Advantage also has their own certification program, and we have the homes in there, as well as those that are zero and zero ready, and those are primarily in the Oregon and Washington area. We have Earthcraft from South Face Institute, which are generally in the southeast part of the US. We already have the Energy Star data available in some markets. We have Greenpoint Rated from Build It Green, which is in California, and Home Energy Score data from the US Department of Energy. Well, that's a national program. It's administered by individual programs. So right now our coverage includes Oregon, a couple of cities and statewide, Columbia, Missouri, the San Francisco Bay Area, Fort Collins, Colorado, and we'll have another location coming on soon for Home Energy Score data. And then we have the State of Missouri Home Energy Certification Program.
There was a question here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So on the national side, the question was about Pearl. They clearly have, some maps of all their projects kind of laid out all over with a lot of information. Is there any conversation to do an integration there so that they show up as well?
I have been in touch with them, so we are in discussion, and we'll see what may come out of those conversations. But right now, I don't, I can't say yes or no if they'll be coming on board. But we are in discussions.
Got it. And then I should also let everyone know that our Green Star program will be listed on there at some point once we complete our part of the process. So those of you working with us on Green Star, and then all of our home energy score will be on there, covering large parts of Michigan and parts of the Midwest. So that's exciting too. Some other questions coming in here. I mean, I guess the list could go on and on and on, but these are big ones. I mean, Passive House, any conversations there?
Yes.
Great. And what about, commercial? I mean, I know you had mentioned multifamilies coming soon. Multifamilies typically permitted under commercial building code. So that kind of answers that question a little bit, but is there going to be something like this on the commercial end ever?
Yeah, I mean, so we have to think about GBR is still a relatively new product to the marketplace as far as our this next iteration of it, as far as aggregating all of this program certification data and solar PV data, throughout the country. So, original focus was on the residential marketplace because that data was really the most buried and really the most difficult to obtain. So our next phase here is multifamily. We do have on our radar to incorporate commercial. It feels like the commercial space in general is light years ahead of the residential space as far as the promotion of commercial certified buildings and the inclusion of that information as part of the transaction process. So I would love for us to get to the point where we're able to take any type of property that has a building certification or renewables on it. So we're just in sort of the early stages of starting to build that out at this point. So great questions.
Well, I know LEED especially, and then NGBS certify multifamily sort of indiscriminately. Does that then just not show up if it's checked as multifamily, or is it, that also would kind of populate in your system?
Yeah, so what we're building out right now, it's not available to be pulled into our system.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're building out the ability to do that. And then on our public facing website, we're going to, on our search filters, we will then add another filter option for single family, residential, or multifamily, or the ability to search for all. So we have a little bit of development work that is in process now, and actually it's in our kind of development environment ready for some testing. So we anticipate that should be available by the end of this month. And then we'll start to be backfilling that data from these various programs that we already have relationships with for the multifamily properties.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a really good question here, and maybe you're going to get to it, but it's, you know, how do you determine what is green and what's not if someone comes to you and you could say, well, this just doesn't seem right. I mean, is that something you're planning to discuss, or do you want to answer that now?
Yeah, so great question. And really, any home that we take into the Green Building Registry, it has to have come from the originating source. So the program administrator that has conducted the audit on that home and then therefore given it a rating or a score, depending on the program and how it evaluates those homes. So any home in GBR has had that process happen. Um, but some homes may score low, like with home energy score. Their scale is like 1 to 10. So you could see homes with 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s. But it's about bringing that transparency into the marketplace and that additional information about those homes. So this isn't a zero energy, database. This is a database of any home that has this energy label associated with it, so that that information can be conveyed to the marketplace and buyers can make a more informed and purchase decision about that home and understand better what they're getting into. So all of the data has gone through a verification and QA process. We also do an address validation process upon bringing that information into the Green Building Registry. And all of the data also in here has the appropriate permissions. Some records are private, so in some markets we're able to indicate that a home may have a home energy score, but the details of that score are not available to be displayed. But we do provide a means of, via an email address, of a way somebody can contact the program to make that information public, which I'll show you as I get into what you see on a property view page. So does that answer the question? So it's not a high performance home database, so we don't have a specific threshold that a home has to meet or exceed to be included in the Green Building Registry, just that the audit has happened and they have obtained the certification.
Yeah, that's great. I think, well, so, the question then is, what if I just have solar? And if I understand correctly, you do list solar only homes, or you are doing that?
Yes, in some marketplaces where we have solar data, sometimes we just have the solar information on that home. And sometimes we have the solar data because it was a part of the energy audit process, so we were able to get that. So our focus has been bringing on additional data certification partners, and then also ongoing is we're constantly looking to source new data. So solar has been more difficult for us to obtain because one of the things that we require to receive data is that the entity has permission to use the information in this manner. So including it on our public website, making it publicly available, and then using it as part of the real estate process and all of that entails. So Not everybody at this point feels that they have appropriate permissions to do so. And some people still are very leery about just sharing their information.
Yeah, that's interesting. Usually everyone who has solar wants everyone to know. I mean, I do too. And some people try to place it on the north end of their house just so people can see it, right? And we're like, don't do that. You're going to make everything look bad. So I know,
Yeah.
but I know I'm trying to track down disclosures. Well, and I guess, and I'm sure the answer is the same then, but any thoughts about including additional information for those who have batteries too? Does that come up in discussion?
Yes, we actually have the capacity to support battery information, but we just haven't been able to obtain any of that from any data partners at this point. So that is definitely a part of it.
Seems like Tesla would just be a great contact for all that, but I don't know. So, cool. Yeah, I think that answers that specific question quite a bit. So thank you.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, keep them coming. And then all of the data that we provide through GBR is in the format, which is standard with the real estate data standards. So we're looking at a consistent representation of this information, which is also really important in the greater marketplace. So in short, the data we have, it's good data, and we have all of the available data from these programs to use for this purpose. So how do you source this data? There's really a couple of different options. We have our public-facing website at us.greenbuildingregistry.com. So anybody can go there and enter a property address, and if we have information for that particular address, you'll see that, and I'll get into what that looks like in a little bit. But we're also very interested in having discussions with the real estate industry in making data connections so that this information can be automatically populated into listings so that it does get out into the marketplace, because that is one of our biggest primary objectives. And that can happen either directly into a listing, or sometimes it goes into a third-party tax or public record system because maybe there's already a data auto-population process built in to pull in some of that basic property data into a new listing. So that could be an environment where it gets implemented as well. But today, anybody can go to our website and find the information that we have available. So this just kind of gives a little bit of a data flow visual. So we're sourcing this building certification and PV data from the originating entities that are supporting the building certifications and power production data. So we bring that into GBR, we're aggregating all of that data, we're normalizing the data to provide that consistent representation, and we're creating reports so that there is that documentation, which a number of multiple listing services need when a building certification is indicated on a home. We're then able to feed it out to our public-facing website, to the MLS systems, which are then available to appraisers and lenders. And then from the MLSs, out to many of these more popular third-party websites, or really any third-party website, to include this information. And a lot of several of these websites that you see on the far right here, you're not able to search for this data because it's not getting into the listings, so they're not necessarily doing the development work they need to do to support maybe the display, let alone the search ability on their website. So if you are maybe an agent or a broker or an MLS, and you have a website of your own, make sure that this data is coming through from your MLS, or if you are the MLS, make sure it's available on your website because consumers are looking for this information.
On that note, there's so many scattered MLSs, right?
Yes.
All over the country. Right?
Over 550 and maybe less than 600. It's always changing, and nobody really knows precisely. But yeah, there are a lot, hundreds throughout the country.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a wild west as far as green features, right? I mean, I remember one time looking at our local MLS when we first went green, and it was funny. I mean, they had toilets listed under indoor air quality, which is just, I think, I'm hoping somebody just thought they were hilarious and knew what they were doing. But, it was the funniest thing ever, and they finally fixed that. But, it seems that the idea of having all these MLSs go green is just an insurmountable task. I mean, we've been talking about it for 4 years just to get a couple around Michigan green, and it's like, oh my God. And then to get the ones that are green to do better. I mean, what do you think? I mean, it seems like this system almost is an alternative to that. And you had mentioned helping people sell homes. Are you going to be listing homes for sale or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brett. And I started my work in greening the MLS back in 2008, and it is a very long process. There's really a few different ways that an MLS may go green. Maybe there's a new mandatory policy in their marketplace, which is becoming more popular throughout the country, and they're really forced into it. They have no choice, because as part of that policy, if it's time of listing, they have to be able to support this information. Agent and broker demand. If you're an agent or broker on this call and you want to see better fields to support this data, definitely be reaching out to your MLS, because you're their customer, and they should be hopefully responding, at least listening to your member requests. So get your friends together and contact your MLS and say, we want this. And then thirdly is, a few, but it is only a few, have actually made it a strategic priority at the MLS level to really build out the standard fields put out by RESO to support this data for building certifications and power production. So, the hope is, and I've been talking about this, for 4 or 5 years, since, when I was at the MLS, we initiated a data auto population. We adopted the real estate standard fields, and it's just so easy. And, I'm hoping now that we have this data source through GBR, that it will help increase that momentum and recognition that, yeah, this is here. It's not going away. It's really, I think, the future of real estate, and that more MLSs will get on board with moving their green data fields forward.
Yeah, there was a comment in here, and I can see that, and I've seen it in practice, that one of the concerns about the green part is this, just so many different labels. As you all have a lot of labels, you put them out there, there are more coming. Does that tend to discourage then greening of the MLS because of all these different available certifications and standards out there?
Yeah, I certainly think, circling back to the whole education component of it, I think there's still just a big lack of understanding of what all of these mean. And, I think that's really where these, the standardized fields from RESO come into play, is because, an MLS doesn't necessarily have to understand what all of these different certification programs do as part of their property evaluation process and different things, but which programs are present in their particular marketplace, so that they can provide the appropriate program types, the certification types available to their members. So that's something that, we have that data. We know which programs are in which market areas. So that's something that we offer consulting services with MLSs on this field adoption. Maybe they already have some fields, but they don't have the standardized fields, so we can help them with that data migration and provide them information on what they should have to support what actually is happening for certifications in their market area. So that list really doesn't have to be necessarily 15 long, or however many certifications there are, which there's a lot in this country when you really dig into it. And I've also done training courses at MLSs where I don't go deep into what goes into each of the certification programs, but I provide them enough information so that they can have a basic understanding and comfort level. Because I think a lot of this comes down to comfort as well, because for most of them, it is still new. They haven't chosen to really learn about it and embrace it, so that they can be more educated and have a baseline understanding of these different certification programs and sort of what they all mean. All right, so I mentioned, we connect to verified data sources. We do that address validation. We have secure data storage and all the data use permissions to provide this data through the Green Building Registry. So now let's get into what data I'm talking about. So again, the focus is on a consistent representation of the data. And the data points will vary a little bit based on a particular area and the data relationships that we have in place. So here is one particular property. I'm calling this a property overview, because when you type in a specific address, or you can search at the state level, county, towns, and you're going to see all those dots on a map. When you click on a dot and get to a specific property, this is initially what you're going to see. You can see on this specific home in Ann Arbor, it has a HERS and it also has a lead for homes. Here's one in Illinois that also has a HERS and a NGBS, and another one in California. It has a home energy score, but again, this particular home energy score is private, so you can see how we handle that private information. And the hope there is that more homeowners will choose to make that data publicly available and provide that visibility. But this one also has a Green Point rated certification on it as well. So when we get to these, there's little arrows here. You can arrow those down and that expands the section. And this is the standardized data that I'm talking about for the real estate industry. So while, yes, it would be awesome for us to be able to collect in GBR and convey, insulation levels, window types, efficiency of your, furnace and air conditioners and things of that nature, with so many MLSs throughout the country, it's just not feasible for us to try and kind of convey all that information in a consistent manner. So right now we're focused on the green verification field data put out by RESO, which is the Real Estate Standards Organization, for that consistent representation. It provides the basics. What type, who was it, when did it happen, how did it rate, where's the data coming from, and is it confirmed, things of that nature.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to stay at a high level, right? Because sometimes we get dragged down into some of the prescriptive items that it's hard to compare homes, but if you've got this high level performance, then you kind of know what's going on. But I will say, with that, I wonder, because you list solar, as a feature, right? So that is sort of a prescriptive feature, but it's a very good one. Do you see there's such a challenge to shift us away from fossil fuel, methane or fracked HVAC systems, fracked gas HVAC systems over to all electric? Do you see a future where maybe heat pumps might be a feature listed on here? Or does that still kind of get way down in the weeds, like, is the attic insulated and all that? So.
Yeah, I think that still gets a little weedy for a specific data field, but one of the things that you're going to see in a slide or two, documentation, as I mentioned, is an important component. And on that documentation, especially with home energy score, it is up to each home energy score provider, the level of detail and information that they include on that report. But that's where you're going to find some of that information. Okay, so it's really important to look at that. So on this specific home here, so let me go get ahead so that I can show that to you. This is kind of what a solar representation looks like. At minimum, we obviously want the type, when it was installed, the size of the system, and in some marketplaces we only get like the estimated annual production, so we'll include that. So we really just kind of try and get what we can get, but that provides enough information to make it relevant. So on this specific one, so here's an example of one that has a home energy score from California. You can see in this middle section the details there, and this particular home energy score report. This is only the first page of this, but oftentimes on page 2, you're going to find information about the current, what the home currently has as the data elements that are collected, or what has been improved on that home. So that's the data that can then be either promoted in public remarks, or included in a specific data field that an MLS may have to call out that higher performance element of the home. So you'll also notice up here we have the energy costs. So on all of home energy score, as part of that evaluation process, the fuel usage is collected, and then there's rates associated with it. So you're able to show that energy cost. So this specific home in Missouri has HERS and also their local certification report. And because we have a deeper relationship with the state of Missouri, we're able to actually create this report for the HERS. And here you can see we're able to provide the energy cost as well. So we're working towards being able to provide this information on any home in our system that has a HERS rating.
If only all HERS reports look like that.
Yes. Well, we're creating kind of a standard template so that we can provide the information in this manner. Okay, so that's coming. We're working on it. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we have a partnership with the Appraisal Institute. So we provide a pre-filled AI Green addendum that includes the property address up here, the certification information or energy label information, and then the solar data when we have it available on that particular home. And I do want to provide take a couple of minutes and provide information about the energy cost estimate, because this is something, in addition to what may be provided as the calculation based on the home energy score data or HERS in some marketplaces where we're able to provide, we're also providing a typical cost. And what this is, we have a relationship with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and based on specific features and characteristics of the home, and there are hundreds of thousands of algorithms that they have done, we're able to provide this typical cost estimate. And let's talk about what that means on this particular, for this particular instance. So on this home, it has a home energy score, and we have that reference cost there. So what happens is the difference between these two numbers can then be filled in on the AI Green addendum, which we do when we have all of these numbers available. And we're able to provide that estimated energy savings for that home. So again, that's a home energy score or HERS home. And this data has never before been available. So we're really excited to be providing this now to the marketplace. And it's also being delivered in a consistent manner. So that's, again, consistency is really important, especially when you get into the appraisal and financing world. They need consistency. So this is a great number that could potentially qualify a buyer to afford more home. Some consider that as additional income for a potential buyer. So in today's marketplace especially, it's really important. So let's talk a little bit about an API connection with GBR. As I mentioned earlier, we have the ability to connect directly into an MLS's listing maintenance system, or through a tax or public records database, and this would generally be handled through the software or third-party vendors that provide those services. Some companies in the real estate environment already have an API key from us, so that that functionality is already in place and ready to go. We just need the MLS to say yes, and we can, get it connected in. And what you get with an API connection, all of the data fields that you saw on the previous screens, including the URL to that report where it's available, the URL for the AI Green Addendum. And as I mentioned earlier, with that API connection, we're able to provide additional data. So you're going to get the Energy Star data for that marketplace. You're going to get the DOE Zero Energy Ready data. And we're going to be able to produce that energy cost estimate, because we're then able to access that additional data from ResNet to provide that energy cost estimate, the typical cost, and then that energy savings on the AI Green Addendum. And then that also provides the ability for data auto population. So what are some of the benefits of data auto population? Well, you're getting data real time from our API. It's improving the data accuracy of the information that goes into a listing, because there's no chances of miskeying information. You're getting more comprehensive data. So all of those fields that we have that I showed for RESO are all important fields. Many MLSs may have the ability today, or a checkbox for somebody to say, yeah, it has a HERS or it's an Energy Star home, but it doesn't provide a date field to indicate when that was obtained. Because if it was, 10, 12 years ago versus, within the last 5 to 7 years, there's probably different value considerations to be factored in there. And it also they may not provide a place to indicate what that rating came out as. As I mentioned earlier, the program's the source, so it helps reduce risk and liability. And it's so easy to get this data then into the listings. And then also you get the AI Green Addendum. But without a data auto population, there's certainly so many different ways that an agent can add this information to their listings today. So I have a matrix here. The bottom left corner is kind of where we start at good, and it goes up to the top of best, and opportunities that may exist now on the left, and some that may need to happen in the future are on the right here. So, obviously start with education. Education is a huge component of all of this. Include the data on the listing. Use the public remarks, not only to provide the score and rating information, but to tell the story of what it means to have a higher performing home. Because as I mentioned earlier, not all homes in GBR are high performing, but those that are really help convey that message as to what it means as far as comfort and health and indoor air quality. I think indoor air quality is something that has really come to the forefront in understanding with so many more people now in their homes because of COVID. I think more people are starting to understand that more and better. So that's maybe been one of the benefits of us all living through a pandemic. But really just there's a lot of different ways to get this information on a listing, even if the MLS doesn't have the specific fields to enter the data points or search on it. So I won't go through all of this in because we're starting to get short on time here, but it is included in the PowerPoint handout that Brett uploaded. So please feel free to take a look at it in more detail. So sort of in keeping with our mission, this is kind of a data impact cycle of this information. So, there's obviously, it's starting sort of in the bottom left. There's a number of different reasons that for home performance improvements. There might be government incentives, there's consumer demand, maybe there's a mandatory policy in a particular market area. So all of those different things, as well as new construction, are driving building certifications. And there's all those different types, as well as renewables. And so that home performance asset information is captured in the form of data, which then comes into GBR, which we help get out and are working towards getting out into the real estate marketplace, which could result in higher market value for the seller, lower default rates on mortgage products. And then, generally speaking, Fannie and Freddie, they have green mortgage products. And if a homeowner is purchasing a home that isn't, that has room for improvements, oftentimes they can incorporate those improvements into their mortgage process when they're purchasing that home, so that they can make their home more efficient and more comfortable and less costly for them to operate. That in turn turns into green mortgage-backed securities, which it's the billions of dollars potential of that is astounding. There's institutional investors, GSEs, and all of that's happening, and which is resulting in turn to more homes being built and retrofitted, and also very important component of all of this is the carbon impact of the buildings are decreased. Okay, so it all kind of plays in together here. So one of the things that I kind of brought up at a presentation or conference I attended for the the real estate industry is what is your green data strategy? Sam DeBoard, who is the CEO for the Real Estate Standards Organization, wrote a 5-part series for that was published in Realtor magazine, and with his permission, there were really some good quotes. He's really committed to driving the real estate industry forward in data adoption, standardization, innovation. And he was actually thrilled to see the paper I wrote about this, which is available on our website under the news section, talking to MLSs about the availability of this data and why they should be adopting the RESO standard fields for this and make this an option for their membership. So, a few of his quotes: providing MLS participants with more data isn't just about technical capabilities. It's about thinking in a more holistic way. So being able to provide this information on a home is really helping to give more information, thinking about the home in a more holistic way than just when was it built, how much are the taxes, bedrooms, baths. It's that additional data point that's been lacking that we now have easy access to. Giving brokers a unified set of services and data that present a true picture of the market and leave consumers with a high level of satisfaction with a professional service provider. I guarantee you it's very likely that consumers aren't out looking for this information necessarily. They don't know how to find this information. So if you're a real estate practitioner, you having the knowledge even before maybe you go on a listing appointment that this home has a certification, because chances are a homeowner may not know, or maybe they forgot and shoved the documentation in a file somewhere and it hasn't seen the light of day since they obtained it, and they don't think that maybe they should mention that on a listing appointment. So it's not coming to up in discussion. So ask questions, search our website, and provide a higher level of satisfaction to your consumers by providing this information. And then lastly, but all information is accurate is good information. So as I mentioned, we're really, the integrity of the data that we're providing, the accuracy of the data that we're providing through Green Building Registry is really a key attribute for us as well. So what might be next steps? So obviously using our public facing website is a great place for anybody to go and find this information right now. If you are a practitioner, you want to talk to your MLS, some considerations are, are there any data audit population processes also already in place? If there is, then incorporating this data into that environment is a great place to bring the information in, because for end user experience, somebody's not having to peck too many buttons or try and do too many processes, as they're already probably entering pages and pages of data on a listing. So that just provides efficiency for the listing agent in that entry process as well. Obviously, if any field work needs to be completed prior to a data implementation, considering multiple sets of the green verification fields to support a home that has more than one building certification. Obviously any home in GBR has one, but many have two, some have three. We've seen some with 4 or 5. There's less of those, but they do exist. And the ability to support the AI Green Addendum, either via URL field, or any of the documents can be downloaded from our website and then uploaded into your listing. Consider including them as a photo in your photo gallery, or adding them as an attachment or document to your listings as well. And finally, whatever you're going to do your green check, and then evaluate this information and really work to get more of this data on your listings. So thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. I am going to be able to stick around for a little bit after the webinar. So if there's any further questions or discussion, I'm looking forward to that as well. So thank you all.
Hey, thanks, Meg. Yeah, there are a lot of questions coming in and a lot of great conversation going on. And obviously, as per our usual Realtor series, we're going to stick around and keep talking even after that, if those of you want to kind of unmute and chime in. But real quick, for those of you, we are at our time, so be respectful of those of you who have to go. Check your spam. You will get your certificate in there from customer care at gotowebinar.com. And so if you don't see that, check that there. You'll see the survey there too. Please take that. And then for those of you watching this in the future, not right now, but on demand, go ahead and go to our Thinkific channel and take that quiz with an 80% passing rate, or GBCI, whatever channel you're watching this on. Take that quiz, pass it, and you will get your CEUs. And before we get into all those questions, a huge thanks to our board of directors, our volunteers, our new executive director, and all of our big top tier sponsors: Mitsubishi Electric, Rheem, helping you go all electric in heating, water heating, and then Build Equinox serve to help ventilate our spaces, keep us healthier and safer. So I want to get back to the AI addendum and just again reiterate that you all, when if a house is listed or someone's listing their house and they're on here, you basically pre-fill that out for them, at least with the certifications or the solar. But I assume you're not filling it out with like the prescriptive measures, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, I think it's important just to keep reminding people of this. It's hard to believe because, it's one of those things that it's such a struggle. And actually, I just learned a few months ago or a few weeks ago in my own project that the appraisers actually won't fill those things out, and they're expecting someone else to do it, which was stunning to me. I'm like, why would you go to sit through a 16-hour training and then you won't fill it out? It's a little frustrating if you can't tell, but I also understand the liability and the concern. And also I thought it would be an insult to fill it out and say, well, I'm doing your job for you. You don't know how to do your job. But I guess, at least I heard from my own appraiser and a few others, that is the case. So it sounds like this is something helpful that you can hand to them. Now, here's what my appraiser told me. He said, number one, we looked at the solar in the community, and you're using solar. And had there not been solar in the community, we wouldn't have given you any value for your solar. And then number two, they actually had the data on the energy savings that they were then able to multiply by the price of commodities. It blows my mind a little bit still, but so with that being said, I guess then one, I encourage you to get more solar, because that seems like it's hard to get any value without the solar if people have it. And then number two, do you see that the actual cost savings for these types of systems will get listed? Because that I was actually able to obtain 3% value based on actual projected savings, and nothing else mattered to the appraiser. The certifications, they didn't care about anything else. Like, they're like, I didn't even see all that stuff. So.
Yeah, and that's why we're hoping, now that we are starting our rollout of being able to provide that energy savings amount on the appraisal addendum, that will really help to make that a benefit to more people.
Yeah. So another question that came in here, I mean, so you can go to Zillow now and you can see walk scores, maybe you can see solar scores, I think, to some degree. I mean, how long is it until someone can just go there and see green and everything they need? I mean, that's the question that kind of came in, and it makes sense. I mean, everybody's looking at that. I mean, I know realtors don't like that. I know realtors want them looking at the MLS. I know we want them looking at your database, but they're all going to Zillow. So how long until Zillow just has all these green features on it?
Well, I think, something important to talk about is Zillow used to just be essentially a real estate marketing website. So MLSs may have, data agreements with Zillow to send their listings as, ideally the seller has a conversation with their agent, and the agent is then able to indicate in the MLS, what other websites they want their property to be marketed on, okay? But Zillow is now actually a brokerage. Redfin is a brokerage. So there's so much changing in that landscape. So these third-party websites that most people are accustomed to going to, they're getting all of that data from the MLSs. And because now a lot of them are brokerages, they're not necessarily allowed to incorporate other third-party data on that property record unless it has come from the MLS. So there's a lot of policies and rules around the display of listing information on websites outside of the MLS that come into play as well. But yeah, I mean, we would love for them to do that. I know in the Portland, Oregon area with their mandatory policy, as part of that, it was mandated that Realtor.com, Redfin, Zillow, HomeSnap all include and display this information, the home energy score data. They also appended it into their public remarks as well. So they include the home energy score, what the score was, and then the URL to the documentation for that in public remarks, so that hopefully it can get out to other websites. Some have stripped that off because it goes against their display rules. So that's why it's even more important for the MLS to have these fields. And as they get populated, the greater the volume of data that's available there, the more likely that third-party website, that other website is to include it and display it. So it's really trying to build that critical volume of data.
Yeah, you brought up the sort of disclosure requirements in Portland from when homes are being sold. They have to have a home energy score. In other cities, I just actually was emailing a city right now a second ago about a potential disclosure law. I won't name any names, but so it's happening. And I think with a tool like this, does it make it easier to do that and for cities, and then maybe help? Do you see a future where we're going to be disclosing not just energy, but the other 4 pillars of green, health, water, materials in place?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, through GBR, as I mentioned early on in the presentation, GBR was originally built to support programs in this data initiative and to sort of be the data go-between from the program database and out into the real estate community. So yes, GBR is well positioned, and we work with a number of different entities on that already. And as far as the 4 pillars, some of those 4 pillars are naturally incorporated into the particular building certification program. So they're already, like the Living Building Challenge and CEUS, some of the programs that have a higher bar, so to speak, they're looking at a lot more information about, the site, water conservation, and things of that nature. So, not every certification program is created equal, but we're able to at least provide a standardized representation of this information. And, it comes back to education as well.
Mm-hmm. I believe potentially a realtor on here was mentioning that they're, getting some green features added to their MLS, but the question was, what are the appropriate features that should or shouldn't be on their MLS? I mean, what kind of response would you have to that?
Yeah, and that is one instance where real estate is local. When I was greening the MLS back in the day, we didn't have a lot of resources available to us, but some things I would consider in trying to figure that out is, talking to the local energy office, builders in the area. What are the builders that are building high performing homes in your area? What types of things are they putting in those homes to make them more energy efficient? There is on the RESO website as well. It's reso.org. They have a data dictionary wiki, which essentially goes into a lot of detail about standardized fields that an MLS could adopt. So that could be a resource, but really understanding and getting a sense of what's happening in your MLS market area is the best way to go, because that's going to make it the most relevant for what's happening in your marketplace.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry, what is the website address for that?
It's RESO, reso.org.
Perfect.
And they have a data dictionary wiki, but again, that's you still want to know, what's happening in your marketplace to know which fields that make the most sense to ask to be added to your MLS.
I saw on there was some opt-out for like the home energy score to actually like display the score on what the score actually is, which I find interesting, because if you're not going to display your score, I have to wonder what it might be. But anyway, I like that in that then it has that transparency, like, oh, there is some information out there. People could request it if they're buying the house or something. Is that going to also is that also available? The HERS index rating kind of follows the same logic, even more numbers to pick from. And even some of the certifications, you might say you're certified to lead, but not say what it is. I don't know why. But is that available at all, or is it just for the home energy score?
Well, our findings so far of the programs that we've partnered with is that it's just home energy score.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you don't list like a HERS, it says, hey, there's a HERS rating, but you don't know what it is. So.
No, I think as part of the HERS program, all records are deemed public.
Okay.
So it really depends on the particular program. And some programs, if there are, like the Greenpoint rated in California, if they have private records, we don't even get those. Mm-hmm. So we're just getting the publicly available data.
Mm-hmm. Is there any plan to add actual operational information? So port in utility data, port in if people are tracking air quality metrics in their house, or water data, and to actually display at a certain point, like, in the year 2024, this home had an average CO2, CO2 of 600, or had, $100 worth of utility bills a month or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly be great, with home energy score programs today, and then on HERS, when we are able to make the relationship happen in a market area, we're able to show, based on fuel type, what the consumption was for that home over the last year, and provide that energy cost estimate based on those reports. Well, in home energy score, they use a statewide average. On our typical cost calculation, we're using local rates. So that is providing a little bit more accuracy, as well as those with a home energy score, we're able to use the local rates there. So we're already providing a little bit of that insight. I would think it would be great, if there comes a point in the future where more homes are monitoring their air quality and different things, that would be awesome if that could become, the norm and be available as well. But I think we're a little ways out from there yet at this point.
Right, yeah, you got to get.
We're finally here, like 13, 15 years later, with, the ability to provide the energy label data. So,
right, yeah, at that rate it could be a while. So well, I know you you extended your time to stick around with us a little bit, so I really appreciate that. I don't see any more specific questions here for you though. So
okay.
well, so I guess so there is another question, and I know you've got a lot of knowledge and experience here, so maybe you can help answer it. But again, just kind of going back to that, that local MLS office, what is the strategy for, contacting them about including these standardized fields? Like what, I guess that they're saying, do you suggest contacting my local MLS office to suggest adding specific standard fields? And then I'm curious who is deciding which standardized fields to include. Is it regional, state, or national?
Yeah, so good question, and there's really a couple ways to go about this. Yes, if you are a member of an MLS, definitely reach out to them based on their defined means of how you submit requests or suggestions. And it's really so to support the most consistent and efficiently. The RESO standard fields are green verification and power production. So those are the two field collections that you may want to ask that they add to support, building certification and renewable data in your MLS. As part of my job, when I'm reaching out to MLSs, I am talking to them about the fields that they have and educating them on why they should have these fields, but I'm not their customer. I'm just a third party trying to sell them something. That's how they're looking at me, now that I'm in this seat. But again, I spent years, speaking and advocating to the MLS industry about the importance of this information. And now that we have a source of this data, I'm hoping that more will be receptive to moving forward in this field adoption. So yeah, I would definitely reach out to your MLS and request that green verification collection and power production collection fields be added.
Do those MLSs usually have elected boards?
Elected, I don't know. I think, there's different types of MLS ownership structures and operational structures. So, some are owned and operated by an association, maybe, a number of different associations, and some are broker owned. But I believe generally, I don't think I've come across any MLS that doesn't have a board of directors that or at least committees that help make these types of decisions on behalf of the MLS members on field changes.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you know, if it is the ability to get some influence on the board, you know, and you want to do this, hey, get elected and help make some noise. Start a green committee. We've seen some local associations who influence their MLS to have green committees. So all sorts of ideas out there. But yeah, as you said, Meg, like if you're their customer, you know, reach out and at least just say something. So yeah. Well, perfect. Every time if I say there's no more questions, then one pops up, which is great. We love questions, but I don't think there are any more. Yeah, so if you wanna head out, I think if other folks want to stick around and have some other further just general conversations on the realtor side, we'll stick around and do that. But Meg, we thank you so much, and GBR and Earth Advantage, always great to talk to folks from there and connect, and hopefully we can all catch up with some of your team in real life again someday, like we did at Green Build. So, where can people go to learn more again if they want to check it out or check out the database?
Yep, they can go to us.greenbuildingregistry.com. When you're there, you'll see the a little search bar at the top of the screen, and there's links to more information, just kind of about who we are and what we're doing. But our property search is right there on the screen, so I encourage everybody to check it out and see what data we may have available in your area.
Great.
And
thank you so
thank
much.
You all very much.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Be sure to check out all of our courses available online that you can watch anytime and anywhere to pick up your CEUs. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to get weekly updates and stay up to date on green building science courses, webinars, and home tours. Thanks again.